Hi, in this last somewhat shorter video, I want to talk briefly about the third project. Now, the idea is straightforward, it's in the slides and it is in line with what we've been doing in the labs, and in terms of structure, very similar to the first assignment. All three assignments have the same idea. So nothing here should come really as a surprise, but I just want to briefly talk to it. So the investigation that we have been focusing on for several labs is the link between development aid and democracy. So we've looked at classification models, so we can use that to classify whether a country is or is not democratic. And we've looked at regression models, which we can use with a scale like the polity scale to see whether a country is more or less democratic. And then we can compare that with aid data, where we have national data on each country on the level of aid received. There's one lecture that we haven't really discussed, and I don't think we will get around to that, but the lab is online if you're interested, and that is on geography and networks. The image behind me is a map of African development aid, but with precise locations. So this is very different from the kind of data we have in the other labs. And you can see for every dot in the picture behind me is a foreign development aid project in Africa in a specific country. And then we can see how that then links up with the level of democracy, which I think is the coloring in here. So the brighter blue states are the less democratic one, I think. So let us look at briefly at the slides. So the last bit of the slides is about the project. So the idea is to use the labs 4 to 6. You can use either the labs as they are designed by me, or your own variations or your own changes. Of course, for the better grades, it helps to make some variations. But for a passing grade, you certainly can just rely on the output as it is and write an essay around it. The key focus here is, can you interpret findings from these statistical models in a political science context or a social science context? Yeah? So I want to see the link between what we do technically in this course and what you do more substantively when you study development or economics or politics. So to start with, you need some of the code from the first lab. In lab 6, it's all together there in one block. It's about opening the data, computing some new variables, merging data sets to each other, etc. You don't need to worry about that, but that step needs to be taken. So if you create a separate markdown file for your homework assignment, which I would always recommend, then you need to copy and paste first those blocks that just open, merge, compute the data. Yeah? You can change it if you wish, if you want to compute other variables, but that's a good starting point. Then take democracy as the dependent variable. This is a binary variable. It's a classification model. It's based on the polity 4 data. I think 6 and higher is democracy, and otherwise it's non-democracy. The code is in the lab. So that is your dependent variable, the thing you try to explain. Is this country a democracy or is it not a democracy? Then you focus on the effective development aid, but you want to add some variables that are useful control variables. So if we think that development aid affects democracy, we might want to think of other variables that explain both the level of aid and the level of democracy, and that might therefore be a confound. So a good example is economic development. If a country is very poor, it is more likely to receive a lot of aid, but it's also less likely to be democratic. And therefore, some of the relationship between aid and democracy might be spurious, might not be a real relationship, because it was really about poverty that we are looking at. So poverty or economic development, good variables to include as controls. You can probably think of some other ones. And then you should present at least one regression model, and this can be logistic or discriminant or a linear regression, that's up to you. If it's a linear regression, it's the linear probability model, right? Because the dependent variable is binary. Or and a tree-based model, which can either be a random forest or a regression tree. And it would help to visualize some of the relationships you're looking at. Yeah? So if you look at aid and democracy, make a plot, and maybe show the regression output. How exactly you present this is up to you. And the graphical description is optional, but all these things help to make it a better essay. but it should include at least one regression, at least one tree-based model. Then you write an essay around it. It's the same structure exactly as for the first assignment. However, the essay is now a little bit longer, 2,500 words, excluding captions, tables, and bibliography, but including graphs and tables. So you should write a short, sorry, I said that you need to exclude tables and include tables. That doesn't work. So you can, in those word counts, you can exclude graphs, tables, captions, bibliography. It's really about the words of text that you write, but including footnotes. I should have said that. Each essay should consist of a short introduction, where you want to outline why this is a relevant problem, why should we care about agent development. Don't put in your personal opinion, but make a reasoned argument why one as a social scientist should care. A description and motivation of the data and the methods used. So think about where this data comes from. Articles are linked in the lab. Think about what methods you're going to use and why these are relevant methods to use and what they tell us, etc. Then present the analysis, show some graphs, show some tables, maybe a regression table, maybe a table of importance of variables from the random forest, maybe a tree diagram, maybe a scatter plot of the main pattern that you want to show, or a box plot, whatever you want to show. And interpret these results in context. Yeah? So put it in context. Tell us what these plots say. And then the interpretation and conclusion, where you really go back to the original motivation and where you go back to the political science context and try to describe what we now can conclude. Yeah. So to repeat, the short introduction is about why should we care about this question, based on a not personal opinion. Yeah? And the description and motivation, so where do the data come from? What methods do we use? Why those methods, etc. Yeah? And the analysis is about presenting the tables, graphs, etc., and their interpretation. Yeah? What do they tell us? And then the interpretation refers back to the introduction and concludes what this analysis tells us about development aid. Yeah. So you can see the structure here of the essay. Why should we care? How are we going to approach this? What data do we have? Why do we have this data? Why do we have these methods? What should these methods tell us? What are the tables, graphs, and what do they tell us? How can we interpret these statistical analysis? So you know, what does a tree mean? What does a number mean? Or how do we read this diagram, etc. And then the interpretation, which goes back to the actual underlying social science question. What do we now know about development aid in democracy? What can we conclude? What did we find? How is this interesting? Okay. So the next slide then, some practicalities. You should search for some literature and you should reference some literature. I have no rule how many, 2 or 3 at least make some sense, but you might want to look around a little bit, get some idea of what the literature says about foreign aid in democracy or foreign aid in democracy promotion. Yeah, use Google Scholar to find some articles. If you log into the UCD library, you're able to access online articles even when you're off campus. And then you can download them, read them, get a little bit of an idea. Might also be very useful to come up with control variables. Why do you think these control variables are interesting? Perhaps based on some of the literature you saw, or control variables that other authors use that you have access to as well. And as I said, best is to make a separate Markdown file for this analysis. And you can even write the entire essay in Markdown. I saw many people do that on the first assignment, which you can then compile to PDF and open in your browser and then save as PDF or print to PDF and then submit the PDF. So the file that you submit, as always, should be a PDF file. Please do not send me Word files. You send the PDF file to my email address, and as well as a separate R or RMB file with the commands, or if you integrated the two, that works very well too. The deadline is the 6th of April at 1 p.m., but really you should be able to do it much earlier. So you will have a lot of online assessments now, you have videos to watch, and we are all getting used to this new online teaching approach. So if you have some time to look at this essay, just finish it and submit it so you're done. If you want to submit and then send me a new copy because based on feedback from the first assignment you decide to change something or you came up with some mistake that you made, that's no problem. I will just look at the last submitted assignment. Okay, that's all. Good luck with the assignments, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.